Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Right now at Safeway, earn 4 times rewards points when you shop for participating items with Safeway for you. Shop for items like Frigo crumbled blue cheese, Kellogg's Club crackers, Coca-Cola, all liquid detergent, or Utz chips, and earn 4 times rewards points with Safeway for you. Offer expires January 4th. Plus, get select holiday essentials like gift wraps, bags, holiday decor, lights, and more. Buy one, get one 50% off. Restrictions apply. Promotions may vary. Visit Safeway.com or head in store for full offer details.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
In episode 2 of What Was It Like To, I had the great pleasure, thanks to an introduction from Richard Pittman, to chat to Charlie Fenwick, the American amateur jockey who won the Grand National in 1980 on Ben Nevis. What was it like to win the Grand National?
Winning the Grand National was certainly a life-defining experience for me. I'm not sure it changed the trajectory, but it gave credibility to what I was trying to do. I certainly did that. It had been an aspiration of mine forever, bucket list kind of thing. So it was a life-defining, I would say, wonderful experience. Absolutely wonderful.
So it was a dream you'd always had, because there was a family connection with the Grand National, wasn't there?
Well, yes. There's sort of 2 connections. One, my grandfather, Howard Bruce, owned a horse named Billy Barton, who ran in the Grand National, and I think it was
1928. Yeah.
28. Okay. And I think there were 60 plus runners and 2 finishers. And he was second. The jockey fell off at the last and was thrown back up. And Tipperary Tim was the winner. And family lore was, and I think it's true, Tipperary Tim was a tubed horse. And I can remember seeing an old video of him coming into the winner's enclosure at Aintree. And it was a very cold, muggy day, and you can see the breath coming out of his neck. So the tubing did work. And then the other connection was, which probably had more to do with me, was Jay Trump. And Jay Trump was trained by my uncle, Bobby Fenwick. And he was obviously ridden by Tommy Smith. And Bobby Fenwick was involved with the early times, maybe the first Maryland Hunt Cup, maybe not the second, with Jay Trump. And we lived in the same community. I was an impressionable teenager, 17 years old in 1965, and loving steeplechasing, loving timber racing in our country. And then to see Jay Trump and Tommy Smith win the Grand National, it just sort of said, it's doable. It's doable. Possibly I could do that someday. And it was very, very exciting. I remember my brother and I listening on a shortwave radio to the race. So that had a lot to do with my aspirations towards the Aintree Grand National.
Well, thanks for that. But you also need the right horse to win the Grand National. And Ben Nevis was bred in England. How did you come about getting involved with Ben Nevis?
Well, that's another story. So, and I think this is all true. My father-in-law, Redmond Stewart, often went to Yorkshire to shoot grouse. And so in, I think it was 1974, he's there. And someone tells him at dinner one night that he has a horse, and he says he's got lots of talent, but he's not manageable. And the lure was that my father-in-law said, well, I have a son-in-law who has talent, but not manageable. Maybe this would work. And he sent, and again, this is what ties in, Bobby Fenwick was with him. They were there together. And he went, saw the horse. Bobby went and saw the horse the next day. He said he threw a stone at the horse just to make him trot across the field, and he was sound. So that's the amount of research that went into buying this horse. And he came to us, and he was unmanageable. He was really difficult, tough to even get on. But we were able to do it. But my wife and I did not think this was going to work out. This was going to end well. But we were totally wrong.
And he proved very successful in America. He won the Maryland Hunt Cup twice, didn't he?
He ran in the United States 12 times, and he was undefeated. And he won the Maryland Hunt Cup, and when his second time, he took 8 seconds off the course record. He won our Grand National, which is similar to the Maryland Hunt Cup the week before, and he also set a course record there. So by the end of the spring of 1978, he had done all that you needed to do to say, do you deserve a shot at the Grand National? And and we all wanted to take that shot. I would say that. So, and we had, certainly on paper, there was no reason not to send him. And in those days, he was automatically qualified for the Grand National, having won the Maryland Hunt Cup. He wasn't handicapped. He had to go through the handicapping process, but he was qualified. So the door was wide open for us. I would put it that way.
But there was a lot to plan for you to come over, yes, and the horse to come over to actually get to line up in the 1979 Grand National.
Correct. And my wife, my 3 children, and a nanny, we all went over. And I had been over earlier and talked with a variety of trainers. Tim Forster, to me, made the most sense at that time. And I fell in love with Leckham Bassett. And in fact, courtesy of Cecilia Knight, at the time, we were able to make an arrangement for our family to live in where Henrietta Knight lives now, in West Lockinge, which was not a 10-minute drive from Leckham Bassett. So everything kind of fell into place with Forster and the house. So we all moved over in November of 78. We were there for 4.5 months. 2 of the children went to school. The youngest was not a year. She was born in the summer of 77 and lived in a bathtub, slept in a bathtub in Henrietta Knight's house. So it was all working out. It was all coming together.
And how did you manage your own work? Because you were a merchant banker. Well,
I actually at that point was switching careers, and I was a banker, and after that I became an automobile car dealer in our area. So that was another sort of convenience of the whole thing.
And what about fitness and riding in the UK?
Well, that was a project. I rode some races, not many, and I don't think I was really, once in Ireland I was on a good horse, but I did run, jogged every day. I would say every day, at least 5 miles. I love playing squash. I found a village that had I can't remember the village name, but it wasn't far from Lockenge, where there was a squash court. There were a couple guys that wanted to play squash. So, and then there was a club up in Ditcut, and I played up there. And I would ride whatever I could ride at Forster's, but I think fitness was fine. But what went with fitness was maybe even more important was the weight. And I had to lose some weight. And so getting fit was the best way to lose weight for me.
So I read you were coached by Graham Thorner, who'd won the Grand National for Tim Forster in 1972.
That's correct. Graham was a stable jockey for Forster at that time, and he could not have possibly been more helpful, nor could anybody else been more helpful than Graham Thorner was to me during that time. I would be forever grateful for that. Not only dealing with what Aintree might be like, but just everything, even dealing with Captain Forster to some degree. He was very helpful. And we sort of knew what we thought, how Ben should be trained. And that didn't always meet with what Tim had in mind. So there were times when we all had to sort of put our heads together and figure this out. And sometimes that was trickier than other times, frankly. But Graham was, looking back on it, Graham was a great mediator that helped us stay on the path we wanted to be on.
Although in your first race in this country at Devon and Exeter, you unseated, I think, December 1978.
Yeah. 2-mile race. And that's correct. I'm not sure I was unseated. I think I was lying on the ground beside the horse. Frankly, that's my recollection. That's my recollection. That's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. I couldn't have been more shocked. My wife and I both were just sort of, I don't know if devastated is quite where we were, but wow. So it was, it was a real eye opener for us. And we sort of thought we had something that was invincible, and he had been. So it was a real back to earth moment, I would say. That whole year was a back to earth moment, I'm afraid.
But how did preparations go? You ran in the King George as well, didn't you?
I know. And that was not a great idea. And that was Tim's idea. And he was, it was an experience. It was a great experience for me. I can always say I rode in oh God, Tommy Carberry was on something, and it always
Tide Cottage, I think. Tide Cottage.
Tide Cottage, and it always jumped to the left. And Kempton was a right-handed course, and we were down at the start. I remember someone said, "Tommy, there's a horse always jump to the left," and he said, "Yeah, when he jumps to the left." And I thought, geez, now I got to worry about whether he's even going to jump, much less go to the left. So that was not where we should have been. But we got around and got some fitness, and then we ran a few more times, and we were not invincible. We were doing okay. We were having a reckoning with reality, I think, to be honest. And that continued to be the case for the year, and the next year for the most part. I will say, though, there was a reckoning going on, but it was a wonderful experience. And my wife and I will never forget it, and it was wonderful.
Well, you went to post at Aintree on the 31st of March, 1979 as a 14-1 shot, fourth favourite, carrying 11 stone 2 pounds. How did you feel at the start line of the world's most famous race?
Well, it was exciting to be there. I'll say that it was exciting, amazing. And I thought he went, I thought he did it. What he did there was he did well. We'd had nothing but traffic problems, my recollection. And you can ride a lot of races in England, but you're never prepared to ride at Aintree. I don't think. I wasn't. And you look at the drops, and you think about it, look at videos, whatnot. That's not really enough preparation. You gotta come down over features to understand what it's like. And I was, again, it was another come to Jesus moment, sort of, and it just seemed that we were having traffic problems. And then we get to the chair, and when we get to the chair, there's a horse in the ditch. And my recollection is we had to jump the ditch, a horse, and the fence. And we did the ditch and we did the horse, but we couldn't get through the fence. And he hit it hard. And that time I was unseated and foolishly remounted and jumped the water jumping and pulled up.
Well, I'd recommend anyone to watch it on YouTube, because these two loose horses go out and then they come at right angles right across in front of the field. 9 horses fell at the chair.
Yes, 9 horses. Yeah, that year. And they changed the wing on the right-hand side after that. And I think it became much shorter because those horses got committed to the chair, 50 yards before the fence, kind of, because there was no way out. They were in a funnel of sorts. So anyway, and then he ran in France at Auteuil one time. That was not a great idea either. Graham rode him there. The weight was something less than 10 stone, I think, sort of. It was, and it was a 2.5 mile race around that Grand Steep course, I guess, at Auteuil. I was not there, and my wife went over. Couldn't figure out the bullfinch, and a lot of it was. He must have thought we were crazy. So anyway, we go forward to.
Yeah, when did you then make the decision to have another crack at the Grand National?
It was that summer, and I had I had won the Maryland Hunt Cup in '79 on a horse named Dosdy that belonged to my mother. And I had worked for a good while keeping those two horses apart. He was a very good horse. It was a Timber Horse of the Year, a couple of years at that time. And he won the Maryland Hunt Cup. So he was in the same class as Ben Nevis was. And I didn't really need to have to deal with, and he was owned by my mother and Ben was owned by my father-in-law. So keeping them apart was a good idea. So we agreed to leave him over there for one more year. We have this similar experiences, I would say, in the lead up to the 1980 Grand National. He ran a number of times, but nothing was particularly spectacular up to the race.
But in 1979-80, you were commuting across to ride him, weren't you?
I did. I think that year I came across 12 times. And I know one time we came and spent 4 or 5 days waiting for decent weather and couldn't find it and went home. The horse ran 2 days later. Ewell Davies rode him, I think. I think that's think he was riding for Tim at that point. Graham had retired. Yeah. So, again, he wasn't setting the world on fire as far as the Grand National prospect or any kind of prospect. We get there. I don't remember whether they were calling it heavy, but it certainly was soft. Standing water as you go from the towards the beachers in the ground. You can see at the video now. You can see splashes, and we always thought he wanted hard ground, firm ground. He certainly loved that in the United States. I think some time would say he was going to perform okay wherever we put him. And I remember Forster saying that if it weren't for us and the American connection, he wouldn't run the horse in the race because it was too soft. But history proved that was the right thing to do. I guess there were 30 runners that day. It's crazy, and there were 4 finishers. And Ben and where the year before we had nothing but traffic problems. This year, obviously, there were lots of problems, and I think we were the last one. We say this: we were the last one coming back across the Melling Road the first time, and then the race completely falls apart after the chair, and water jumping head back out, and all of a sudden we're right there. And we go down over the next 6 fences with Delmos, Tommy McGivern, I think. And all of a sudden we're in front. We're head and head for the lead. And he had not been in front in a race in that side of the Atlantic since he'd been there. And then Delmos falls at Beechers. And now he's in front. And he's looking around. Where do we go? What's going on? Sort of have to slap him. Let's keep going. And then we jump the canal turn and head back up those fences. And there is a road right on the inside of the rail. And there's a truck on the road with a camera. And if you look at the video, film, you see this. They're videoing, and Ben sees that truck as being something to compete with, and he's galloping. He picks up the bit because that truck's there, and which was wonderful. And he's running with the truck, and the truck's going to stay with him, so we're not going to go too fast.
And what's it like being on your own at the front? I'm now thinking of your close friend Richard Pittman, who of course was a long way in front with Crisp in 1973.
Yeah, and we are a little bit the same way. After that, we come back across the Melling Road, and he's doing fine though, and he's galloping on. He's galloping on. He isn't going to go any faster, and we don't need to go any faster. We just don't want to go any slower. But I felt like he could have galloped like that, go another turn. It was wonderful. I did. And this is more me. Might have hit him a couple of times, which probably didn't do any good for anybody. But I'm not sure I was aware that John Franklin was behind me on Rough and Tumble. And I was not aware that the horse was 20 lengths behind me. I will say that. But it all worked out.
No, it certainly did. Certainly did. What did it feel like immediately after the race when you're in a sort of a food moment? You're one of the most famous people in the world.
Yeah, and I don't think I had much of a feeling about that at that time. It was just sort of, let's keep moving. We were leaving there, and my father, my mother were there. I had a brother. There were friends, and we didn't want to get out of Aintree, but we were planning to go home that night, to drive home that night. So we're driving. It was Graham and Johnny Shaw, a dear friend, Ann and I driving, and we were headed to Burford. We were going to meet some people at Burford for dinner. And then it's some, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock news. The news is, well, this is crazy, but an American happened to win the Grand National today. And that's when it began to sink in. Geez, peasy. This might be something, and we had this wonderful dinner, the Cotswold Gateway in Burford, and a bunch of people from the Leckham, Bassett, Lambourne area, friends, came there for dinner, and a bunch of us came down, stopped there, and it turned out also in there, but Andy Turnell and John Franken were also having dinner that night. We all ran up at 10 o'clock. We ran upstairs to the television room. It was like a retirement community up there. And there were a bunch of elderly people watching Peyton Place or something, of Dallas. And we can, no, we got to turn the channel. We got to watch the news and see what they have to say about the Grand National. And then the next morning, the horse returned to Leckham Bassett, and there were a lot of people in Leckham Bassett, and it wasn't built for that many people. And it was a wonderful celebration of him coming home back there. It was wonderful. The whole thing was a miraculous experience.
And what happened to Ben Nevis after he won the race? Did he race again?
No, that was it. He was 12 years old. He was. I'm not sure about this, but I felt like maybe the 11-year-old Ben might have been a little bit better, and certainly the 13-year-old Ben wasn't going to be better. And he had done all that we could ask him to do, so he retired. And he was not going to be anybody's fox hunter. He wasn't going to be so he was sort of pensioned for the rest of his life. And he lived for another 8 or 9 years, something like that, just as a pensioner. And he was difficult to get on. He was difficult to ride, pulled all the time. But in the stall, he couldn't have been a sweeter, kinder animal. He was wonderful. He was a great friend. He was with other pensioners. He's a wonderful animal.
Well, he certainly proved a sensible purchase, didn't he? I know you said talented, but not manageable.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And is it a race that you still tune into every year?
I would love to say every year. I'm not sure I get it every year. I make an effort, and I am aware of the build up to the race. I am aware of that. And it is exciting. It's such an honor to have been a part of a wonderful event and tradition.
With your family connection, you were putting right what nearly happened in 1928.
Yeah. I'll tell you just a quick story. Quick story. One day I'm riding him in Leckham Bassett. This is maybe the first year. And there's a guy who delivers the paper in the morning, old man. And he says to me, was that the Maryland Hunt Cup winner? I said, yes. And he said, I rode one. And I said, yeah? Yep, I rode Billy Barton. And I said, and this is 1978. And he said, yep, I won a race on him in Newbury. And it turned out that this guy had ridden the horse as an apprentice in his first race and it was at Newbury. He won. Then they thought, well, this horse is too good to be ridden by this apprentice. So they put top-notch professional on him. He never won another race. But Morgan had in his house a picture of himself jumping the water jump at Newbury in 1928. And there was a picture of Ben jumping the water jump at Newbury in 1978. So Morgan lent me the picture, made a copy of it, and then gave my mother a little composite of her father's horse jumping the water jump at Newbury in 1928 and her son jumping the same fence in 1978. And she had that in a prominent place. And the idea that we would run into Tommy Morgan in Leckham Bassett is just crazy. But it was fun.
Oh, what a wonderful moment. And thank you, Charlie, for sharing your what was it like to moment.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to do this with you.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at The Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/play100 and use code play100. That's code play100 at prizepicks.com/play100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.